An Xfinity team is shutting down. Looks like San Diego is, in fact, getting that Cup Series date. And we'll jump into the latest legal drama with 23XI in front row and Rick Ware Racing versus Legacy. So let's get into it. Coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. All right, first things first, it looks like Our Motorsports will be shutting down. This coming from Motor Stardom. Our Motorsports announces they have ceased operations effective after the upcoming race at Dover. This comes right on the heels of them letting Chris Wright go as far as his contract is concerned. So now we know why that happened. And of course, they did announce that Kaz Grala will be driving, but let's look at what Motor Stardom also had to say about it. Our Motorsports announces the end of the organization following this weekend's race at Dover with Kaz Grala. Our Motorsports will cease operations in NASCAR racing moving forward. Thank you to NASCAR, Chevrolet, the fans, employees, and drivers for a good ride over the last 6 years. So there you go. No future with Kaz Grala there. Unfortunately, the veteran journeyman driver going to get the last start for the organization. And then after that, it looks like it's a wrap. A lot of guys are going to be out of a job over there. Feel terrible for the team members and things like that over there. So that is definitely one of the sadder things as far as this goes. And as sad as that is, it does bring up another question. Is this a sign of the health of other NASCAR teams, or is this just another team shutting down? Is this a sign of things to come? Are other smaller teams going to follow suit? Is it no longer going to be financially viable for these smaller organizations to run cars? Of course, the Hendricks and, Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s of the world, they're going to continue their Xfinity Series program. But, other smaller teams, will we see some more teams start to shut the door? It is a fair question to ask. But then again, this could just be, another small team shutting down and, might not be anything to it. But either way, interesting that it happened sort of mid-season. This from Kelly Crandall. NASCAR is headed for San Diego next season. Racer has learned a deal has been reached for NASCAR to return to Southern California next year, and the announcement of the event could come as soon as next week. San Diego has been a rumored destination of the sport for the last few months, and Racer noted last week that Coronado has recently floated as the potential destination. So there you go. We had heard that it was a rumor that San Diego might get a race. Now it looks like it is way official, at least Racer and Kelly Crandall putting her name onto it, that they think it is official, and the announcement will be made later next week or maybe the week after that. So huge news. That fills in that date, that Southern California date that NASCAR so desperately wants, and doing it in the San Diego area. There is a ton of race fans down there in that area too, so I think it will easily sell out. The street races have been very popular, at least the Chicago street race. Speaking of which, she did continue in her article to talk about the Chicago street race and its future. It is unclear where the exact location of next year's race will be, or even if it will fit onto the schedule. NASCAR is still working through potential returns to Mexico City and Chicago, with the latter interested in extending its deal past the 3-year contract that recently concluded, but at a different date on the schedule. NASCAR raced in Chicago in early July the last 3 years. And those races have been marred with weather. Every single time they've run, they've had to deal with some type of weather. But that's not the issue with why Chicago, the city, wants the date moved. It's because of traffic. Traffic on July 4th, they don't want to clog up that part of the city for that long a period of time during July 4th. So that's why they're looking for a different date on the schedule if NASCAR comes back. And that, of course, is a big if. Of course, this does beg the question that a lot of NASCAR fans have on their minds. If you add San Diego, if you add Chicago, or keep Chicago and you keep Mexico City on there, is there going to be too many road course races? Where do we fit the extra San Diego race? Is another track going to lose a race or go down to one race, I should say? So all kinds of questions swarming out there. But as of right now, we seem to have San Diego on the docket at some point, at least according to Racer Magazine. All right, 23XI was denied a temporary restraining order, at least for the next 2 races, until their preliminary injunction is heard, and this, of course, makes them charterless for, or at least they'll be acting as if they're charterless for the next 2 races, those being Dover and Indianapolis. Now, technically, they have been charterless all season, but they have been allowed to operate as if they are a charter team because of other pretrial motions and things like that have gone on. And once again, this doesn't mean that in the future they won't be able to act as a chartered team while the litigation continues, because, of course, that injunction hearing has to be decided by the next judge that hears their next argument on whether or not they should be able to operate as a team that has a charter before the trial begins. The trial, of course, is set for sometime in December. This is what 23XI and Front Row Motorsports lawyer had to say about it. We are disappointed that the court declined to grant 23XI and Front Row Motorsports a temporary restraining order to allow the teams to continue racing as charter teams. We remain confident that our motion for a preliminary injunction is legally warranted and necessary. We look forward to the court's full review. So there you go. They're still going to go after that injunction. That is still their next move in the pretrial motions, of course, once again, not even to the trial yet. They would go on to say in their statement, the court made it clear that it is only denying the temporary restraining order because NASCAR has agreed to preserve our charters until the preliminary injunction can be decided, and because we are assured of qualifying all our cars for the next 2 weeks so that there will be no irreparable harm before the preliminary injunction can be fully briefed and ruled upon. So there you go. This actually has no bearing on whether or not they will win or lose that preliminary injunction this time, because the reason the courts won't provide the restraining order is because, well, they're not going to be affected at all because they will qualify for the next 2 races because there's not enough cars to fill out the field all the way. So they're basically locked in and guaranteed. So no Corey Haim situation going forward. Of course, NASCAR agreeing not to sell the charters until the preliminary injunction is heard is a drastic departure from what they said, of course, to Adam Stern earlier in the week. Since the Fourth Circuit's decision, NASCAR has signaled its intention to immediately move to sell or issue plaintiffs' charters to other entities, putting plaintiffs in irreparable jeopardy of never getting their charters back and going out of business. So there you go, from NASCAR basically saying, hey, we're going to immediately sell these charters, to now NASCAR saying, all right, we'll hold on to them until this preliminary injunction is heard. And what's interesting about that is, and what my takeaway is from that is, these charters will not get sold, most likely, until all of the court proceedings, or if they reach a settlement, whatever is going to happen with this actual trial, with this actual case, nothing will happen, but NASCAR will continue to bluff and make these moves like this, and 23XI will continue to tie up NASCAR in court so that they can't sell these charters. And so it is my thinking that I think at some point the courts should just say, we're going to freeze these charters. NASCAR doesn't own them. 23XI can't use them or act like they're using them. And at some point, that just needs to be the way that this moves forward, because otherwise, they're just going to tie up the court system fighting over whether or not one side or the other can act like they're using the charter. Because quite honestly, we haven't even got to the trial yet, and there's just so much back and forth about, what's going on with the charters. Really, honestly, I feel like the best thing that could happen is the courts freeze them. Whether or not that happens, who knows? Who knows with the American court system? P. Diddy. Who thought he was going to get the light sentence he got? So the American court system, who knows what's going to happen? So that's all preliminary stuff, but just in case you forgot what the actual lawsuit is about, they made that clear in their statement as well. We made the decision to bring the lawsuit to challenge NASCAR's monopolistic practices and bullying tactics, and we are not going to let them push our teams or others out of the sport that they love. We are confident in the merits of our case, and the teams remain focused on competing this weekend and continuing their playoff push. So there you go, just in case you forgot why they're actually suing NASCAR. They're saying NASCAR is acting like a monopoly, and they are acting like bullies and forcing teams out and stuff like that, or having too much control over teams, bullying teams into doing things that the teams don't want to do, essentially. So there you go. That's what the actual lawsuit is about. But all this back and forth about who owns the charters for 2025, 2026, and so on is the pretrial motions. Nothing's happening. They're just tying up the courts with it. So hopefully they just freeze the freaking charters, because I really hope this is the last freaking video I make about this, at least for a while, until the preliminary injunction trial is had. Speaking of legal stuff, though, let's continue on to some more legal stuff. Legacy versus Rick Ware Racing. Of course, Legacy Motorsports has filed a lawsuit against Rick Ware Racing, saying that they were supposed to sell them a charter, and that Rick Ware Racing pulled out of that deal and doesn't want to sell them a charter now. Rick Ware Racing, in turn, turned around and countersued Legacy Motor Club for, whatever. I don't know. I'm not even keeping up with this one like that. However, there is now a third lawsuit in the Rick Ware Racing versus Legacy Motorsport deal, and this one involves TJ Pucher. which in this case, Legacy Motor Club is suing TJ because they said that he knew about the deal and he's actively trying to go in here and buy this. For those who are unaware, TJ was a consultant, according to Legacy, with Rick Ware Racing, and he knew the ins and out of the Legacy Motor Club deal. And when he went in to buy the Rick Ware Racing organization and the charters or become the lead partner, however all that worked out over there, when he went in and invested into that team, they're saying he knew about it and he is actively trying to get that charter back because he doesn't want them to have it, is essentially the crux of the argument for this lawsuit. So there you go. 3 lawsuits. We're up to 3 actual lawsuits now in the Rick Ware Racing versus Legacy Motor Club, and Legacy Motor Club versus Rick Ware Racing, and Legacy Motor Club versus TJ Poocher. Saga, drama, whatever. So there you go. All right. Everybody up to speed on that? Everybody caught up? All right, yeah, me too. All right, that's all I got for you in this one. Hope you have a good rest of your Friday and enjoy your whole weekend. All right. Peace.